Namaskar.
Dr. Panda, very good afternoon. कैसे हैं आप?
Good afternoon. I'm fine. How are you?
All good, sir. All good. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to see whether we are audible or not.
Correct.
Namaste, Dr. Panda.
Namaskar.
Namaste, Brajesh ji.
Namaste, Siraji.
Hi, Mukul. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Sadhna.
Hello.
And good afternoon, Robin, or good morning to you in your location.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning. Yeah, I'm joining from Oxford today in the UK.
Oh, wonderful.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can.
We can hear you.
Perfect.
So, Deepa, Devang,
Yes.
we are all set.
Yes, sir. I think another 5 minutes to go.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
We have all the Dr. Rajesh Jain joined in as well.
Yes, please.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rajesh Jain. Hi.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jain.
Good afternoon, sir.
हाँ जी, good afternoon जी, कैसे हैं? How are you?
All good.
All
sir.
well. Thank you, sir.
Is that Robin I see on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So Robin, we have not met. Welcome to the meet.
Thank you very much. Yes, very honoured to be invited to participate in the forum.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to have you here. We'll have some variety. Up to now, generally meetings have a lot of local people, but this time we'll have some global view as well with your presence.
Thank you. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Very tough, but yes, very exciting.
Well, yeah, certainly not without its challenges.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. This is Rajneesh Tingal, Joint Secretary here.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon, Rajesh.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jain.
Hello,
Yeah,
good
Rajesh.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Dr. Panda. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. It's great to see you within 2 days.
But congratulations on that, standing that you got globally as well as in India. Proud moment for you.
Thank
I
you so
need to
much.
tweet that tomorrow. Definitely, I will tweet that.
Yes.
I think Nipper is doing good, but could be better.
Yes, it could be better and definitely better. I'm trying to put together the research challenges. As someone commented that this is a new trend, we're just trying to put more research focus and so that we can just get this.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jain.
Hey, good afternoon.
How are you, sir?
Very well, very well. Enjoying. Delhi weather is like beauty today. You are in Delhi as well, so you must be enjoying.
Absolutely,
After,
sir. Absolutely.
some dusty start in the day, but I think now it's cleared up and looking very nice. Full of flowers everywhere.
Yes.
I know. Thank you, Dr. Garg, for joining, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dr. Garg.
Very good afternoon. How are you?
Very fine. Thank you.
Hi, sir. Hi, Dr. Garg. Rajesh on this side. Nice to see
Sir,
you.
namaskar. How are you? Thank you.
Very well. You look like slim.
नहीं नहीं
You look like you are hitting the gym very often. Huh?
I wish to.
Last time when I met and now there's a change. Good change.
How are you?
Absolutely enjoying. Fantastic. Very good.
Very good.
Healthy and
Good
happy.
afternoon.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Dr. Pramod Garg. This is Dulal Panda.
Hello. How are you? Good afternoon.
Good
Nice
afternoon,
to see
Rajesh.
you
Good
and meet
morning.
you.
Good
How are
afternoon,
you?
Pramodji.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar, sir. Namaskar. And thanks for all for joining this. Rajesh ji,
Hi, sir.
thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
They have put me here, sir. I was supposed to be in the audience, Rajesh.
No, why should you be in the audience?
नहीं राजेश जी मैं तो कह रहा था कि
You have such a
आप
fantastic record of running companies at leadership level, and now you are running leaders of leaders in IPA.
नहीं सर नहीं राजेश जी सर बहुत बहुत मैंने कहा कि ये we wanted to be in the
Namaskar.
But thanks for all for joining it. It is such a great thing. And thanks to DOP for.
So, Swati, whenever you give us a signal, we'll begin. So,
Yeah.
I don't know how much attendance you are looking at.
I think, sir, I think we can wait for 2 more minutes and we'll start.
Yeah.
Sure. I am the opening bowler, so not a problem.
Yes, sir. Sir, you are the torch bearer, always.
Joking around.
Dr. Jain, so nice to see you.
Hi, कैसे हैं? How are you?
Good, sir. I also meant Dr. Sudarshan Jain.
अच्छा कोई बात नहीं चलो मेरे साथ सेकंड हाई हो गई.
Thank you very much. I am not Dr. Jain. Rajesh ji is doctor. I am Sudarshan Jain only.
He is doctor of doctors.
राजेश जी आपके कंपनी में मेरे को भी डॉक्टर का डेजिग्नेशन मिल जाता है. Thank you.
Sudarshan ji, I think Naipar will be very happy to give you a honorary doctorate.
Yeah, of course.
Dr. Dulal Panda is already there. He is listening.
Yes. Sudarshan, that I think I was trying to get hold of him several times, and every time he said next time.
नहीं सर मैं आता हूँ सर आपकी मैं आता हूँ.
I request all participants to switch on their video cameras and keep yourself on mute. Whenever there's a requirement, request you then unmute yourself. We should begin another 2 more minutes.
Thank you, Swati. We can start in 5 minutes. 2 minutes में वो करते हैं.
This is Dr. Sehgal here from Mumbai.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sehgal.
Hi, this is Sushanta from Origin Oncology Limited, Bangalore.
And we have got many of the global attendants also. Anand, thank you for joining today. Thank you, Anand.
A very good afternoon to all the eminent panelists and all the other members who have joined for the CII and IPA webinar on collaborative research on therapeutics. We're delighted to host this today under the guidance of Department of Pharmaceutical. Before I hand over, I would like to welcome Dr. Rajneesh Tingle, Joint Secretary, Department of Pharmaceutical. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
We also have Dr. Pramod Garg, Executive Director, Translation Health Sciences, Department of Biotechnology. Welcome, Dr. Garg. We are joined by Dr. Sridhar Narayan, Senior Technical Advisor, IPA. Dr. Mukul Jain, President Head, Non-Clinical Research and Development, Zydus Life Sciences. Mr. Robin Evers, Senior Vice President, Novo Nordisk. Dr. Dulal Panda, Director, NIPER, Mohali. Welcome, Dr. Panda. Dr. George Patani, Director, Inga Lab. Dr. Sadhana Joglekar, Senior Vice President and Head, Global Drug Development, Novartis. And I'm sure we will be joined by Dr. Yuvraj, Joint Secretary of Department of Pharma shortly. Welcome all and very, very warm welcome to Dr. Rajesh Jain, Chairman CII National Committee on Biotechnology and Managing Director of Panacea Biotech. Over to you, Dr. Jain.
Hi, thank you, Swati, for this introduction. And good afternoon to everyone on this call and for today's webinar on collaborative research on therapeutics. The whole objective to organize this webinar is to discuss the collaborative models that will help all of us strengthen and support innovation, research, and practices in different therapeutic categories for development. And undoubtedly today, when we look at the whole globe, this is a great time to bring together researchers from around the world and to identify the research priorities, the important research priorities, and identify the development for effective therapeutics as a key priority. India has a lot of research capability, but still untapped. And we have a huge human resource and infrastructure available. And therefore, it becomes very important for Government of India, for Indian pharmaceutical industry to actually pay this lot of importance. This initiative in itself is creating a self-sustaining network of the industry, the academia, collaboration for innovation in drug discovery. I mean, all of us know that there is an urgent need for further research to quickly identify promising molecules, promising areas, and to better understand the right time to use them. And it is pretty much clear that none of us can do this all alone. There are examples of many companies who have done it alone, but they are very few. But when you look at the big molecules that hit the market in the last 20, 30 years, you will always find research somewhere, academia somewhere involved, probably in the initial stages or in the middle or later, or companies getting together with academia to take these innovative products forward. So therefore, it is utmost important that collaboration, coordination, and transparency in terms of sharing of information is absolutely essential at every stage of this drug development. Be it conducting of clinical trials or publication of results, and we have several examples. For example, solidarity trial that proved global collaborations and international cooperations always work better. They always work better, and that we must build on to test the promising new therapies that we want to get into. Today's meeting, I think, is a great opportunity to share knowledge from a global perspective from all the members who are experts and who will speak today in the advances that drug development has made and lay the groundwork for a clear and coordinated global research agenda. And I would like to thank, all of you who could spare time and join us today, and especially our panel members, uh, the ones that have come internationally as well, and for their commitment to contribute to this unprecedented global need. I wish all of you a very productive discussion, and I look forward to your advice on the next steps that we plan to take. And I would especially like to thank, Department of Pharmaceuticals for motivating us at IPA as well as at CII to organize this webinar. So thank you very much once again, everybody. I would look forward to your presentations and conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jain. May I request Mr. Rajneesh Tingle, Joint Secretary, Department of Pharmaceuticals, for the opening address and context setting. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Kindly excuse me for my sore throat. First of all, good afternoon once again to all the esteemed members, panelists, and especially the international panelists and all the participants. I extend my sincere gratitude to all of you for joining this webinar on collaborative research on therapeutics. And I would like to express my thanks to CII B20 Secretariat, Swati ji, and IPA, especially Sudarshan ji, for their efforts in bringing together all the stakeholders on one platform for fruitful discussions. As Dr. Rajesh Jain has already mentioned, the importance of R&D and innovation in ensuring the continuity of essential health services, along with providing novel solutions to emerging health challenges, has already been realized by countries worldwide. And before I delve further into our efforts in R&D, I would like to take a moment to highlight India's strong and growing life sciences ecosystem. As you're aware, India is widely recognized as pharmacy of the world, with our industry playing a pivotal role in driving better health outcomes globally. Indian pharma companies have established themselves as reliable and affordable suppliers of high-quality drugs and contributing significantly to improved access to healthcare globally. India provides around 60% of the global vaccine supply and more than 20% of the generic exports. And the Indian pharma industry is a significant player in the global pharma landscape, ranking third worldwide in production by volume, and it is expected to grow from $50 billion in 2022 to about $130 billion by 2030. Our Department of Pharmaceuticals at Government of India level has been mandated for promotion, production, and manufacture in pharma and medical device sector. And in order to fulfill its mandate, the department has, in recent years, launched 3 PLI schemes for bulk drugs, pharmaceuticals, and medical devices, as well as schemes for providing financial support for setting up of bulk drug parks and medical devices parks. In addition, the department has also been entrusted with the responsibilities pertaining to the promotion and coordination of basic, applied, and other research in pharma sector, education and training, including high-end research, international cooperation in pharma research, intersectoral coordination, and all matters relating to National Institutes for Pharmaceutical Education and Research, NIPERS, which are the institutes of national importance set up by the department for imparting higher education as well as conducting research in the sector. We have one of panelists, Dr. Panda, Director of NIPER Mohali, and I see number of industries, Indian industries has also been associated in one or another way with NIPERS. Taking it further, in order to ensure the availability, accessibility, and affordability of drugs and medical devices in domestic and global market, and in line with the increased attention to R&D and innovation, a national policy on R&D and innovation in pharma and medtech sector is under finalization. This policy is based on a detailed interdepartmental coordination and with active association and participation of the industry. And the policy focuses on 3 major areas: those relating to strengthening of regulatory framework to facilitate innovation and research in pharma development, Secondly, it proposes incentivizing investment in innovation through a mix of fiscal and non-fiscal measures. And thirdly, the government is also envisioned to create a facilitatory ecosystem in order to support the innovation. Further, government is also setting up frameworks for interdepartmental coordination. Those are also in process. Quite recently, as you would be aware, in the budget 2023-24, an announcement has been made on pharma innovation. And I think this will be the first time that this pharma innovation has been basically specifically mentioned in the budget. And the announcement related to launch of a new program to promote research and innovation in pharma sector through Center of Excellences and to encourage the industry to invest in R&D in specific priority areas. In line with the budget announcement, Department has already prepared an ambitious scheme aiming to transform Indian pharma sector to shift from cost-based to innovation-based growth, to strengthen the research infrastructure in the country, to promote industry-academia linkage, to inculcate the culture of quality research, and to nurture our pool of scientists. Under the scheme, establishment of Center of Excellences in specified specializations at the 7 existing NIPAs has been proposed. Further, financial incentives would also be provided to companies conducting research in specified priority areas in government institutions, as well as for their in-house R&D. And also support will be provided to the startups, MSMEs, as well as SMEs. The unpredictability of health emergencies highlight the need for all the countries, international organizations, academia, industry, as well as the research institutions across the globe to work together in providing solutions that are achievable in resource-limited situation, and collaborative research has the potential to build sustainable and scalable solutions that are accessible to all, regardless of their geographical location or economic status. COVID pandemic has presented numerous challenges, but it has also demonstrated the effectiveness of collaborative models such as the ACT Accelerator or the COVAX in accelerating R&D timelines to provide end-to-end solutions. During India's presidency of G20 and as part of the Health Working Group, one of the agenda is to create a platform for medical countermeasures for enhanced pandemic preparedness response through a network of R&D institutions. And we in the department intend to work together along with industry for further achieving this collaboration. Collaborative research, as you may agree, is the preferred way ahead as the diseases are becoming increasingly complex and diverse, and making it challenges for the researchers from a single institution or a field tackle all aspects of a disease. And collaborative research would enable the pooling of expertise and resources from multiple disciplines and institutions, leading to a more comprehensive understanding of the disease and the development of more effective therapies. Secondly, research in therapeutics requires significant resources, including funding, equipment, and skilled manpower. Collaborative research would allow for sharing of these resources and expertise, and which will lead to cost savings and more efficient use of resources. Further, the research in therapeutics involve discovery of new drugs or treatment that must then be translated into practical application for patients. And collaborative research would enable the integration of research findings into clinical practice, leading to better outcome for patients. Collaborative research can also help to discover new drugs, develop new treatments, and improve the existing therapies. As such, leveraging the lessons learned from the pandemic, collaborative research can develop more effective and efficient strategies for responding to future outbreak of infectious diseases. In conclusion, I will say that promoting research and development in therapeutics is essential for improving health outcomes and addressing global health challenges. So I take this opportunity to encourage all present here to suggest concrete measures for promoting R&D in therapeutics, thus developing necessary framework for a thriving therapeutics ecosystem. Through this webinar and as well as our regular interaction with the industry, we aim to elicit views of the industry on the need as well as the way ahead for the research network on therapeutics. I'd like to inform you that a similar exercise is also going on through Science 20 Forum, wherein we have already identified research institutions in G20 countries working in the field, and we will also be eliciting their interest on joining the proposed research network on therapeutics. So hoping for a meaningful deliberations and actionable suggestions, which can be then be taken forward. And thank you so much once again. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tingle, for your inputs, for your suggestions, for your advice. Before we move forward, I request all of you that in case you have any questions in your mind, or if you have any note, any input, please put in the chat box. If time permitting, we would be taking those questions with the panelists. Thank you. And now I'd like to request Dr. Pramod Garg to make his presentation. Over to you, Dr. Garg. So you need to click on the slideshow on the top bar. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And first of all, I'd like to thank CII-IPA and Department of Pharmaceuticals for having invited me to this important webinar. I come from a background where, I see patients all my life. So I know what is required in the clinic to serve our patients best. And also currently I am in a research institution, and I know what goes on in research institutions to understand the deep biology of various diseases. And now I also understand that what is it that we lack, or where do we fall behind when it comes to developing new therapeutics, whether it is collaboration between institutions, or whether it is collaboration between institution and industry, and whether it is the government and other stakeholders who are very much required for any new therapeutic molecules to come to the market. So with this background, I'm going to talk a little bit about the need, the lessons from COVID. And COVID actually has provided the impetus for, I think, this webinar also, or what the Department of Pharmaceuticals is also trying to establish collaborative research on therapeutics. Because all of us have realized during this period of last 3 years now that we really need to pull ourselves together to fight not only this pandemic, but also many other existing diseases, such as tuberculosis. And today, tuberculosis, this being a TB day, we know more than 400,000 people die from tuberculosis in India alone. So this is the time that we understand that, we have our efforts have fallen short of our expectations. So we need to be prepared. So what is our vision and mandate and objectives? How do we set up such a research and development network for therapeutics? How do we prioritize what pathogens and diseases do we need to look at? Who should be part of this research organization? What are the approaches to drug discovery, clinical development, and most important to my mind is funding. So COVID actually has shown us the mirror, both not only the developing countries, but also developed countries, that if you are hit by a devastating disease like COVID, no matter how rich you are, you will be equally affected. And this tells us that we as a country, not only in India, but globally, we were underprepared or unprepared in large measure against this infection. Drug treatment, unfortunately, was elusive. I mean, there are a couple of drugs, including remdesivir and molnupiravir, which were tried without any success. The only drug we had was Paxlovid. But otherwise, drug treatment, and there were so many trials. I personally was involved in many meta-analysis to understand if any of the repurposed drugs could be effective or not. Unfortunately, none. Vaccines did provide better success, but we should understand that vaccines became successful because of prior research, because we were prepared in terms of vaccine, its design, its development, its production, scaling up, its reaching out to people for vaccination. The platform was already there. The only thing we required was the viral sequence. Only thing we required, what were the epitopes on the virus RBD. And once that was known, putting that to the existing pipeline of platform wasn't very difficult. Even when you talk about mRNA technology, the technology was there. It was, thanks to the scientists who could quickly put it to use for COVID vaccine. So vaccines were effective because of prior research and knowledge and existing pipeline, not so much for the drug treatment. Drug treatment, on the other hand, is surely required for infectious diseases, COVID being the best example. And now we have H3N2 going around because drug treatment could be pan-genotype. It may not be affected by the new everyday development of mutations in the viruses. Drug treatment, of course, should be oral, ideally, affordable, scalable, and available, in an equitable manner. And there are successful examples of oral antiviral treatments available. We know about HIV. Today, HIV is a disease which is totally under control. If someone develops HIV at the age of 35, 40 years, the person is likely to live a normal life on the drug treatment. For hepatitis C virus, it is now completely curable, 99% cure rate because of oral antiviral drugs. So there are many examples of success stories which will tell us that if we invest enough in this research, we can come up with effective drug treatment for other infectious diseases. And I think it is well said that what we do in peace, we should do in disaster. So that is very, very important. In disaster, you don't reinvent, you don't invent new things. If you do that, you are going to be nowhere. So your success depends on what you have been doing in the past. And that is the reason I think such a webinar, such efforts on the part of stakeholders would go a long way in understanding and establishing pipelines and platforms. So take this example of Paxlovid. We thought that it was the drug which was quickly discovered and given to patients during the last 3 years. Not so much. It was in 1999 that there was a study published on protease inhibitors. Then 2016, SARS-CoV-3CL protease inhibitors were known. And because we had all the knowledge about the virus biology, we knew about protease inhibitors, we knew about protease were very important for viral applications. And that is how the drug could be developed quickly and given during the pandemic. So I think our overall vision for our R&D network for therapeutics should be to prepare the world for future pandemics. And mind you, here my talk is more driven towards infectious diseases, but it does not mean that we confine ourselves to infectious diseases. And I think the overall objective should be to develop a disease agnostic platform for drug development. Now, what I mean by this is, suppose you have a vaccine, mRNA vaccine technology platform. You have a different virus, you take the sequence, put it there, and you have a new vaccine. Same thing happened for protein subunit vaccines. You have a new virus, you know the sequence, you know the protein sequence, you put it there, it is there. I think similarly, we should have something for drug development also. And also, second objective would be, we have many priority pathogens for which we should develop cost-effective therapeutics. And it requires a lot of hard work, setting up mechanisms to develop such a network. We have to prioritize these pathogens and diseases. We have to identify the willing and competent organizations, research organizations, industry, and other stakeholders who should be part of this therapeutic network. And then we should develop what should be approaches to drug discovery and clinical development. I think in today's time, if we leave aside the non-communicable diseases, for which I think we have reasonably good treatments available, whether it is diabetes, hypertension, coronary artery disease, even in cancer. In cancer also, we have very important targeted therapies available. But when it comes to communicable diseases, I think these are 4 very important things. One is antivirals, and that's what we've been discussing about not only COVID, but influenza in general and other viral diseases. You have Ebola and Lassa and Nipah and other viruses. Second important area, which everybody talks about, is antimicrobial resistance. And people think that if we do not have adequate antibiotics drugs available, therapy for other diseases, for example, cancer, would fail, because if those patients develop resistant infections, you have nothing to offer to them. So that is why AMR becomes top priority. In India particularly, but I think in global south, dengue is still a major problem, which causes a lot of morbidity and mortality every year. And tuberculosis, I said in the beginning that it still takes a high toll on morbidity and health of people around the globe, particularly in developing countries. So to establish, and because these new research molecules or therapeutic molecules cannot be developed in silos. One particular organization cannot actually do it. It requires a lot of effort. And for that, we need an organization of R&D institutions across the country and also within the country. For example, we talk about India, I think we should have a lot of universities are there, and there is a concept of research universities. You have universities which provide graduate and postgraduate degrees, but there are universities provide PhDs, and there are universities which provide primarily PhDs. And I think such research universities should form the backbone of such a network of R&D organizations for therapeutic development. In Delhi, for example, we have multiple institutions, and THSTI is one such institution, the Department of Biotechnology, and we have a national science cluster based here, where multiple institutions work together and collaborate with each other. So I'll give an example of an ongoing research collaboration in the field of dengue. Now, this is through DNDI, Drug for Neglected Disease Alliance, which has now 4 major countries and around 7 institutions in these countries, which have partnered together under DNDI to develop drugs for dengue. And THSTI is a part of that, AIMS is a part of that, because we need a clinical partner as well. Now, in this ongoing organization, we have different setups. We have preclinical team, we have a clinical team, we have epidemiological team, we have fundraising advocacy team, biomarker diagnostics team, and PKPD team, and also a joint steering committee, which will oversee what is happening in different institutions. So the advantage of such an organization is that you leverage the strength of each university, each research organization, and come up with joint solutions. So for example, the preclinical team, there are again multiple institutions, THSTI from India, IMR from Malaysia, CII from Thailand, Fiocruz, UFMG, and Fiocruz Recipe from Brazil, and there are some ad hoc members. So this preclinical team, and we have had multiple research meetings with them. Each one will present his or her own results, and then they prioritize which are the molecules, which are the drugs which can be taken forward. So if we can organize such mechanisms where different institutions share their resources and also share their knowledge, then I think drug discovery should not be that difficult. And drug discovery approaches, I think basically there are 3. One is that we understand the biology of a disease, the pathophysiology of the disease. You understand and identify druggable targets, and then you discover new molecules. Either you have new molecules or you test the libraries which are available, multiple libraries available of thousands of compounds. So that is one approach. The second is repurposed drugs. And for example, I showed you the example of dengue, where we are testing many existing drugs. And I'm happy to tell you that at least 3 drugs are showing very good promise in the lab, at least, both in the cellular models and also in vivo model that we have at THSTI on dengue. And third approach, which is also gaining a lot of ground nowadays, is the in silico approach. For example, a Schrödinger software is there, and you can understand and identify various targets in the host, in the pathogen, and then develop molecules according to that. So at THSTI also, for example, one of our approaches for drug development is through in silico approach. So if we take these multiple approaches, then I think we should be able to develop new drugs. But once you have a drug or a molecule, it requires clinical development. And for that, as a country, we need to have a clinical trial network. I'm happy that, ICMR is now setting up a clinical trial network. Department of Biotechnology has set up in 5 areas clinical trial networks in oncology, in ophthalmology, in pediatrics, and other areas. And they're setting up 3 more clinical trial networks, which can be used for testing these drugs. Ideally, the drug that we develop should be at least phase 2 ready. And focus has to be that it passes the large animal tox studies, phase 1 human safety studies, and then be ready for phase 2 and then later phase 3. An important question is the collaboration between the industry and academia. The ideal setup is that industry and academia go and come together right away. Now, there are many strengths of academia. Discovery science, basic biology, pharmacology, synthetic chemistry are all under the ambit of academia. But when it comes to further development, industry expertise is required. Drug formulation, toxicology, drug metabolism, PK/PD, regulatory affairs, medicinal chemistry, and so many other things. And these are things which are poorly understood in much of academia. So most scientists do not understand. They think I have this molecule which has worked very well in my cellular model. It has worked well in mice model. Why can't it be just come out as a drug tomorrow? Sorry, it can't happen overnight. It takes a long route for it to become a therapeutic molecule or a drug. So one of the recent papers published in JAMA 2020 showed that for the 63 new approved drugs by FDA, estimated median R&D cost was $1.1 billion in the United States. Some estimates suggest that if we can do similar R&D in developing countries in collaboration, the cost can come down to as low as $100 million. And this, of course, counts the expenditure on failed trials. So best is that we have academia industry partnership right at the beginning. And according to one estimate of the global R&D funding of about $1.7 trillion, 71% is by industry. In India, it is around $18 billion, and about a third of it is by industry. So we need industry involvement for therapeutic drug development. There's no denying that. The question is that the risk appetite in the Indian industry is much less when it comes to investment in R&D. And I think that has to go over a period of time. And I'm happy that Dr. Mukul Jain is here. Zydus has developed a drug which has taken to phase 3 trials in India, saroglitazar, and it has completed a phase 3 trial in US all by itself. So I think this is where the industry, in Indian industry, has to move to invest a lot in original drug discovery. And sometimes it is possible that industry may be only interested once you have very robust data from your collaborative network. And that is why such therapeutic networks are important. You come and show your molecules to the industry, and then they come on board to take it further. I'll give an example of an indigenous vaccine development at THSTI. There is a new platform that our scientists have developed. This is a multi-epitope vaccine candidate. And I'm not going to go into the science of that. Primarily, it means you have a backbone here, you have multiple epitopes. Epitopes are the ones which provide antigenic stimulus to the immune system to develop antibodies. And based on this design and our in vivo results, THSTI and Panacea, and I'm happy that Dr. Rajesh Jain is sharing this meeting, THSTI Panacea Consortium got a mega grant of $12 million for development of a pan-beta coronavirus vaccine. And I can tell you the initial results of this are very encouraging. So this is the way we can develop partnership between academia and industry right from the beginning. Each of us know what is our role, what is our expectation from us when it comes to basic science and when it comes to taking the molecule further, vaccine further. And as I said, funding, and Mr. Tingle also mentioned, funding is key. And there are many funding agencies. In fact, large majority of funding in India comes from government funding agencies, national funding agencies, ICMR, DBT, DST, CSR. And there are some funding from international agencies also. Now there is a talk about National Research Fund. When it comes to operating, I think we can have much more funding, expect much more funding for universities. Mr. Tingle mentioned about pharma innovation, and I think such a scheme would be very helpful, both for industry as well as for universities and research organizations. And once we do this kind of work, once we have a network available, I think we can then attract more philanthropic organizations to come to us and donate and give us funds for that. Also, having a network of organization provides you opportunity to share resources. You don't need money right away. I can tell you for DNDi dengue alliance that we have, right now there is no funding. Each institution is using its own resources and sharing with each other, whether it's a virus talk, whether it is drugs, whether it is culture media, whether it is in vivo models. And that is, provides you a lot of strength right in the beginning. You're not just waiting for funds to come. So I would just sum up by saying that having a research and R&D organization within the country and globally is need of the hour. It is a must for major existing diseases and also emerging infectious disease in future. I'll stop here. Happy to take any questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garg, for a very, very informative presentation. I'm sure that all would have enriched through this. In case you have any questions, any of the members can raise their virtual hands at the moment or put their queries in the chat box. Mr. Sehgal, please come.
This is Dr. Sehgal here. It has been very, very illuminating and informative talk by Doc. I have a question. We are rightly pointed out lacking interaction between academia and industry. I tell you, if you go to US, Wisconsin University in particularly, in 2017, they sold their patent to Pfizer for $4.3 billion. That is the value of IP, which probably is not being realized by Indian pharma sector or academia. If you look at one, rather I would say analysis, as Doctor has very rightly pointed that primarily in India for R&D funding is coming from the government sector, CSR in particular. You look at the CSR budget for R&D and patents itself, how much budget they have for acquiring for patent and maintaining the patent. Vis-a-vis, look at the returns on their IP. What is the percentage of return on the IP which is being generated and being maintained? Vis-a-vis money spent in that. That rather analysis itself will speak of the what is lacking and how corrective steps have to be taken to address such issues. This, in my view, is something which is lacking interaction with the academia and industry. If at all, industry can make academia understand about the requirements, about their vision. Academia, they do have an expertise, but they lack inputs. They lack inputs on this aspect, what industry needs. Instead, they take a standard research projects for publications and getting PhD degrees. This is.
I fully agree with you.
This is how I feel.
Very well said. Yes.
I tell you, in US, I tell you this revenues out of their IP licensing is much more than funding by the federal government. And more, I would say more than 20% or 30% of the infrastructure they have got, both in terms of equipment and manpower, is out of the funding from their IP out licensing. And India too have, if you look at, I'm rather amazed. India is a leader in natural product chemistry. Most of the work, if you look at being carried out by research laboratory, is natural product chemistry. Whether it is regional site laboratories or these Lucknow, this ICMR laboratory. Can you know there is not a single NCE from India? Not a single NCE from India. Why? If at all you analyze the product patents of the drug molecules which are in the market, you may find for many patents, you will find Indian as a inventors. How these Indians, when they go to other outside India, they become inventors of NCEs. Vis-a-vis in India, they can't do it. Why? I think government of India itself needs to look into it very seriously and find ways and means.
No, I thank you, Dr. Sehgal, for sharing your views. Actually, there are multiple questions and views and challenges that you have thrown on all of us. I think we will ponder on it. And in the meantime, I would ask Swati, can we continue with presentation from the rest of the panelists? But
Sure,
I
sir.
think they are very important points.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is what, because I have been going to the universities to give talk on IPR. I just tell them the same thing. I tell patent which you can generate may be worth much more than the multi tons of acre of land in which you have got your university structure.
No, I'm sure there are learnings that all of us in the Indian pharmaceutical industry as well as academia need. And I think you put the right questions for soul searching, and probably none of us on this panel are equipped to do that, but only Mr. Modi. And the Modi will have to look at the IP budget, how much money he's spending. So, but nevertheless, I think that's important. Let's continue. I think let's continue with the meeting.
Thank you so much, sir. And if time permits, we can take more questions at the end of the panel discussion.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you
but
for
my
inviting me to
request to every panelist here would be, once you're making a question, then it should be a question, not a talk. It would save everybody's time. So please sharpen your questions, and it will lead to better answers as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. Sridhar Narayan, Senior Technical Advisor, Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance, IPA, to please take the panel discussion forward. Over to you, Dr. Narayan.
Thank you very much, Swati, for the opportunity. Thanks to Rajesh ji, Rajneesh ji, and Dr. Garg for the introductions and the very informative talks highlighting the importance of research networks to bring therapeutics to the forefront. Today being World TB Day, a disease where public-private partnership has been at the forefront of therapeutic research, and several of the drugs on the market today for the treatment of TB having been done in a collaborative fashion. As you all know, drug discovery and development is a very long and expensive journey, with several different talents being brought together to develop the drug. Especially in a country like India, it is important and necessary to build an ecosystem of collaborative research to discover and develop new drugs. The commitment from the Government of India, the Department of Pharmaceuticals, to enhance this kind of collaborative research is evident from the recent RLI schemes that have been introduced. It is my privilege to host this panel discussion with panelists of repute from across the Indian subcontinent as well as from international organizations. Let me start this discussion with a brief introduction to the panel. Today we have with us on the panel Dr. Robin Evers, who's the Senior Vice President of R&D at Novo Nordisk, Dr. Dulal Panda, Director of Naipur Mohali, Dr. George Patani, Director of Inga Laboratories, Dr. Sadhna Joglekar, who's the Senior Vice President and Head of Global Drug Development at Novartis, and also, lastly but not least, Dr. Mukul Jain, who's President and Head of R&D, Non-Clinical Research and Development, Zydus Laboratories. Dr. Evers, let me start the discussion with you. Novo Nordisk has been at the forefront of diabetes research, both globally as well as in India. What is your vision for collaborative research in India, given that India has one of the largest metabolic disease patient populations in the world?
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to participate today. I think a vision for collaborative research is one that embraces, certainly embraces India on the global stage in terms of how it can collaborate in the need to address non-communicable diseases. I think that India is certainly uniquely placed to be able to help with the research efforts, particularly the clinical research efforts that we partner with. About 1 in 7 of the global population of diabetes patients actually reside in India. Over 77 million of the Indian colleagues and patients with diabetes in India are in desperate need, not just in terms of existing treatments, but also new and innovative treatments for the future. And that provides a huge opportunity, as with many other, both communicable and non-communicable diseases, to be able to partner with clinical research, academic research, and network organizations. And so the vision, I think, for us is to be able to make sure that we've got a really strong environment, both from a regulatory perspective, to be able to initiate studies, and an academic perspective. And in terms of, it's been mentioned about networks, I think networks are also fundamental for us to be able to have a platform by which international companies will invest in India in terms of supporting clinical research efforts. And that will provide then a framework and the necessary competences and skills for many other local studies to also then be able to be supported from Indian-sponsored studies, Indian-sponsored research activities, Indian-derived countries, or Indian-derived research targets as well that make their way into the clinic. I think developing that ecosystem is a critical need for the Indian population, but also for the global population. And we certainly actively invest in collaborative research and clinical research in India to help us to be able to do that. We have upwards of nearly 300 clinical sites now. That's actually increased by about 100 sites in the last couple of years in which we conduct our clinical research activities. And I think it's important to also just acknowledge today, but also hold that as a global standard. The Indian research sites that we partner and collaborate with today, they're of the highest standards in terms of clinical research activities. So all of the work that we do and undertake has to be able to ensure that it meets the rigors of all agencies and also the patient level expectations globally in terms of the highest standards and levels of research standards. And we find that in terms of how we partner with academic and clinical research sites. And I think supporting those is important moving forward. So it's talked about networks. We talk where we work with individual sites, and often we provide the infrastructure for the collaboration between sites, but actually networks of sites, it will become increasingly important where India also wants to be able to generate research that will require large outcome studies, as an example, in terms of preventing or treating cardiovascular disease, and many of them non-communicable, high morbidity, mortality related outcomes. So I think we feel like we're extremely pleased to be able to partner with the clinical academic research environment. And we look for one by which we can also ensure that the study startup can happen in a very efficient manner, both through regulatory and clinical mechanisms, ethics committees, regulatory approvals, and such like. So that's, I think, my vision for the future, and it will only increase. We see certainly the impact of these non-communicable diseases. I think the prevalence of diabetes is estimated to double over the next several years in India alone.
Thank you, Robin. I'm going to ask you a follow-on question, right? You stressed a lot on the clinical research side, right?
Yes.
Why do you think that Novo Nordisk has a limited number of preclinical partnerships in India, and what should we do to strengthen that ecosystem to attract companies like Novo Nordisk to invest in the preclinical research in India?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And I think what we need to see is an ecosystem being developed, as is, you can look at models globally about where the ecosystem for preclinical collaboration and partnerships work really well. There's a strong academic foundation and a strong academic interest in terms of preclinical and fundamental biology research activities going on. So we actually ourselves have co-located our own activities where we see a sort of a nascent but emerging and or dominant research led activity in terms of those academic research exploring novel biologies, novel targets, novel computer enhanced or imaging activities, supporting those research and the spin out of those small companies, which we're then willing to then partner and join with. So we actually have made strategic investments in places like Oxford, Boston, other academic centers where academic research has also provided the framework for their own innovations to be spun out into smaller scale companies that then grow over time. And I think we have a responsibility in industry to be able to support that, but it's clearly that public-private partnerships are also key to that in terms of the academic, the government institutions, the favorable tax environments, the favorable environments in terms of protection of nascent IP as it's generated as well. And also then the translation of those activities into early clinical research work as well. So I think the conditions can exist within India, but it comes from on the background of strong academic skills.
Hello.
Okay. Have I dropped?
We can
Hello,
hear
I'm just
you,
checking.
sir.
Yeah, I'm
We
just
can
checking
hear
my
you.
connection's still working. Did Dr. Narayanan?
At least I can see you and hear you.
Okay.
But we did lose
We
you
can
for
hear
some
you,
time.
sir.
Probably now you're back, so.
Okay.
So are
Yeah,
you
so I
done?
think I'm here just to check that the connection is working.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I would have a question for you. This is Rajesh Jain from Panacea Biotech. Now, Indian government has, shown consistently its commitment to support and drive innovation. They have put money on the table. They have a large setup of academia and scientists who are willing to go for innovation, and they show their commitment in every meeting. And I have been personally witnessing that for the last 5-10 years. It's there. Money, people, infrastructure. And we all know that we have a successful generic pharmaceutical industry, which is like the pharmacy of the world, and so many accolades are there, doing a good job. Now, when you look at India from outside, okay, placed in Europe, US, when you look at us from outside, what do you think is lacking in India that large pharma is not working with Indian pharmaceutical industry and or not working with the Indian academia? And what do you think is needed to get that going so that we could collaborate, which is obviously the context that we are in today?
Yeah. So
thank you.
I think it is this ecosystem of allowing and facilitating certainly the nascent, the local infrastructure to be able to meet and partner with the developed, more substantial industry in terms of pharma and biotech. You know, I think the money is there, the will is there, and certainly we get attracted to the science in terms of where then to be able to make those investments. And I think it's not just about a bilateral collaboration between large pharma and Indian pharma. I think the rest of the ecosystem also needs to be there as well in terms of the support from financial institutions to be able to grow those companies over time, and the collaborative network by which the science is then discussed. I mean, if we think about how important the JP Morgan conference is as an example in terms of the West Coast of America, and what we see, we actually see smaller global examples of those things going on, including within India, but those become really important opportunities for local industry to be able to showcase their science and showcase the opportunity for other partnering obligations to be able to be forged. So providing the framework by which search and evaluation teams within large pharma have the appetite, the willingness, the opportunity to explore multiple activities in one go becomes incredibly important. And those networks and the way in which those opportunities allow themselves to also occur and develop is one example of how that would happen. The other is about maybe longitudinal research collaborations as well. We undertake research collaborations which might, start out in terms of 1 to 2 targets or 1 to 2 areas of early research, but then could predictably go on for 5-10 years as we explore new mechanisms of action, new targets in terms of disease, new opportunities to be able to bring the complementary strengths of both companies together, whether or not it's research, non-clinical formulation development work. We talked about the strengths of that in India as well, and then bring that forward into early clinical research. And late stage research is a different game because we're really looking then often, and certainly in non-communicable diseases, about scale and the opportunity to make sure that we have fit for purpose global development plans rather than just purely addressing the ultimate needs in one individual country as well. Those studies cost hundreds of millions of dollars to establish as well for clinical development plans.
Thank you. Thank you. That was useful.
Thanks, Robin. That was really helpful and informative. I'll now move on to Sadhna. Sadhna, Novartis launched the Biome India in 2020 to boost collaborations in digital innovation. Can you share your experience of the connections and impact that the Biome project has made in the Indian healthcare ecosystem?
So thanks, Sridhar. Thanks for having me on this panel. Just checking that I can be heard and seen well.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So thank you, and good afternoon to everybody on the panel and in the audience. So as you rightly said, Biome was set up in February 2020. Retrospectively, if you ask me, was the timing right? Probably it wasn't, because it just was, just before COVID hit us. So there's been a bit of a slowdown in terms of what we wanted to achieve versus what we actually achieved simply because of COVID. But when it was set up in February 2020, the whole idea was it was set up as a collaborative innovation program. So exactly what we are talking about today. And the idea was to leverage the fast growing digital ecosystem and digital capital of India. So Biome India was envisaged to be the external face of the Novartis, I would say, innovation engine. The idea was look at some of the biggest healthcare challenges that the Novartis internal ecosystem cannot address, and then go out and see if we partnered, can these healthcare challenges be solved. So how does Biome India actually work, Sridhar? The idea is that Biome India is responsible to initiate pilots at speed, full stop. Okay. And the idea is to get them to the POC level, proof of concept level, at an accelerated pace. So if you ask me, what's the value proposition of Biome India? Of course, it's all about innovation ecosystem or accessing the innovation ecosystem in India. It's about thought leadership, but truly, it's about operational discipline and velocity. So unlike what you normally associate as a perception with multinational companies, any use case or a problem statement that's identified and decided to put through this pilot process, the requirement is that to the extent possible, it has to be done within 6 months. So 6 months for closure from the time a use case or a problem statement has been identified. That's the kind of velocity we're talking about. Now, of course, this can't happen without partnership, right? This is not just a Novartis engine. So within the Indian ecosystem, while Biome was conceptualized, we did consult with the IITs, we consulted with ISB, so they were our academic partners. There are research and industry partnerships as well. So NASSCOM is one of the partners, because this is all about digital startups, right? So NASSCOM is a huge partner for us. So is T-Hub, which is in Telangana, and that's also a very fostering ecosystem for startups. We have partnerships with our strategic partners, but most importantly, we also have venture capitals. So if there is requirement for funding, there's a requirement for research brainstorming, there is a requirement for some academic inputs, all of these people can be together at the site or virtual for us to take this forward. You asked me how has it really changed or shaped the India healthcare system? I think it's too early to say that it's really managed to change anything significantly, especially because of the COVID dampener. But I can share with you 3 examples among many examples, and remember, this is pilot at speed, right? We stop when it's a proof of concept and then hand it over to the organization to actually scale it up. Sandoz, which is also a partner, it's part of Novartis organization. Earlier we heard about different ways of drug development, and we talked about in silico development. So the use case that Sandoz worked on along with these partners was actually in silico simulation development, especially in the formulation development space. In my domain, in global drug development, we're actually partnering with a medical hospital, a leading medical hospital, which also has research and academic setup in the ophthalmology space. And the whole idea is for coming out with something in the diagnostic space, which will help doctors diagnose a couple of eye conditions in a much more efficient manner. And then in the manufacturing space, there's something that's being worked on in the logistics space using digital technology. Now, these are all, as I said, completed projects, pilot phase, and the next phase, of course, is to take it to a scalable limit.
Thanks, Sadhna. I'm going to stay with the digital theme for you. One more question, right? So, Biome you gave as an example of what you're doing in India. What is it that Novartis does to advance research globally and in terms of partnerships, and how does it use technologies, especially the newer ones like artificial intelligence or machine learning, to build those collaborations or partnerships?
Okay, interesting question. So I'm going to stick to research because I have examples. So as you may be aware, Novartis has a research organization and a development organization, and then the two run, of course, they work very closely hand in hand, but run parallelly. There are several examples in the drug development space, but because our interest today is more in research, I will probably try and give you 1 or 2 examples of what we do in the research space. So I'm going to use the acronym NIBR, which stands for Novartis Institutes for Biomedical Research. So NIBR is actually the research portion of or research outfit for Novartis. So there is a program which is called NIBR Global Scholars Program, NGSP. And this Global Scholars Program is actually a competitive program for innovators from invited institutes. So it's more by invitation program for different academic institutes. The whole idea is that these innovators from academic or innovative or vital institutes will gain funding for their breakthrough science. And through this program, actually, NIBR supports projects which are really focused on novel science, which can translate to drug discovery and or research. You see, now whether we use AI, we use machine learning, or we use some of the novel platforms for drug research and development, that's actually left to the institutes and to the innovators. So Novartis doesn't really prescribe a solution. The whole idea is you have an innovative idea. Here is the funding available, which is not the traditional grant type of funding. So the funding is given to these institutes for identified scholars for a period of 3 years. And it's, the beauty is Novartis doesn't just stop at giving funding because that's the grant mechanism, right? But here, these scientists then have access to what we call as drug hunting expertise within Novartis. So you have these drug hunting dedicated NIBR's academic collaborators. So they will work and partner with these scientists. So don't leave them alone and say, here is the funds and go and do what you want to do. But it's truly a partnership approach. So somebody needs, let's say, expertise in disease biology. Somebody needs expertise in, say, drug hunting. Somebody needs it in translational research. All of that will be provided by Novartis as part of the collaborative network. And that's why the word collaborative innovation truly comes to my mind. This started, I think, in 2020. So again, there was a list of scholars who worked on the projects, and they're still working because it's a 3-year project, as I said. But interestingly, Sridhar, when I looked at the 2023 institutes, which will now be participating in the competitive process, right? There are, I think, more than 50 institutes to whom the invitations have been sent out. So happy to see for the first time CCMB is part of it. So there's only one Indian institute, but CCMB is part of those invited institutes of 50 invited institutes. But what also saddens me is when I look back on 2020, 21, 2022, and I was very interested to see were there any scholars from India. How does India stack up compared to the world? When I look at the 2023 invited participants list in terms of academic institutes, there are 28 from the US. Okay. There are, I think, 4 from Japan. There are 4 from Australia, 5 from UK, just 1 CCMB from India. Now, if you look at the population of India, if you look at the disease epidemiology, if you look at all the other parameters, India should have been right up there. And that talks a lot about, or that poses a question to us. Are we really ready from a research ecosystem perspective? So I know Rajesh Jain asked a question to the, previously about what is it that will get us to the next level of research ecosystem? And I think that's a fundamental question because there is a huge push by the government, and yet there is a lot that we still need to do to ensure that we are as well recognized globally as we would love to be.
Thanks, Sridhar. I'll intervene here because she touched that.
That
question is also very close to my heart. Could you give us some tips? We did hear a lot from Robin, but would love to hear from you. What's your call on that? What's your calling on that?
Sure. So a couple of things, and I often like to convert challenges to opportunities. So while there are challenges, let's look at them positively because, from this whole made in India to discover in India journey that we want to embark in. I personally, whether I work in an Indian setup, Indian company or a multinational company, for me, it's about India. And therefore, at the end of the day, would love to be in this transition journey of made in India to discover in India. As rightly said in the, previously even by the Department of Pharmaceuticals, there's so much that the government and the government institutes are now trying to do to really establish the credentials for India. Whether it's the NIPERs and making them as centers of excellence, the research incentive or research linked incentive schemes and stuff like this. I think it's time that we fix a few things and not just fix, but let the whole world know that we fixed them. Otherwise, the perceptions remain the same. Perceptions are still perhaps that elephants roam around on the streets of India, right? In some quarters. And we need to ensure that not only elephants don't walk, but that we communicate to the whole world that elephants are not seen on the roads of India. And what I mean by that is, and as I think Robin also alluded to that, the whole IP situation, the IP protection piece. Everybody is worried about what happens to the IP if a drug or a molecule is discovered in India, right? So we need to have, we shouldn't have any ambiguity at all. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's jointly held IP. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it is exclusive IP of the academic institute which discovers something. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the IP resides completely with the private pharmaceutical company, irrespective of whether it's an Indian company or a multinational. It doesn't really matter. The next on my agenda, so the whole IP protection and the clarity around it, not leaving anything to ambiguity, because that deters people from making those investments. The second is the piece around early research, and the whole perception in India that companies come into India and try their medicines on patients. So they're using, the whole guinea pig syndrome perception. Now, you can't just say this is a multinational, it's coming in here only because it gets something to do at 1/5 the cost or half a cost, or at a 30% discount. Let's keep the safety framework for patients first and foremost. But my sincere plea is, let's get all of us together, academia, government, all the naysayers as well, activists, media, create these centers of excellence for early research. Take 3 therapy areas: oncology, cardiovascular, metabolic, whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter which therapy areas. Create those centers of excellence in government institutes. So government institutes benefit from that, and bring such transparency that phase 1 study conducted here, anybody can come as long as we maintain all the confidentiality elements, and actually see how the patient is being dosed the first time, and how we keep the patient safety framework around it continuously. So that's number 2. And the last one, number 3, is our curriculum. The academic curriculum has no relevance to research. It has, it does not make you a researcher at all. We are very good theoreticians, but we don't do any hands-on lab work during our academic years, and we must inculcate that research field. So to me, it's all about pride that a parent takes in saying my son or my daughter is a researcher, rather than saying my son or my daughter is an engineer or a doctor. The minute we change this, it's 5 or 10 year horizon pieces. But if we can't do that, there's no stopping India.
Thanks so much, Sadhna. And I think
thank you. I must clap for you. It's so clear. I must clap for you, Sadhna ji. Got it. And you will see, you will be chased now for more inputs.
So thanks, Sadhna. I think you give me a wonderful segue into my next panelist, who's Dr. Dulal Panda from NIPER. Dr. Panda, you heard comments from Robin, you heard comments from Sadhna. NIPER as a premier pharmacy institute in India, what is your experience on collaborations that you've had both with the Indian companies as well as any of the multinational companies?
Good afternoon, and thank you all. This is an excellent opportunity to discuss about these things. So I think I would say in the beginning that today, in order to be successful, we need to have a very strong industry academia linkage. It cannot be overemphasized in any manner. Now, in India, academics, they actually do a lot of discovery. If you look at this last 5-6 years, infrastructure in academia has improved tremendously. Number of publication almost got doubled, and there are many new molecules that are discovering. But what is happening that TRL1, TRL2 you can get, or maybe TRL3, and then academic scientists do not have either resources or leadership, both. Resources is not there, and there is no leadership to know how to take it forward. This is where we actually need the industry to come in. So I think academia is now in a good place to collaborate with industry. Are we tried enough? Have we failed enough to be successful? I have this question that probably we have not tried enough. If you look at this in early 80s, 90s in Silicon Valley area, there are a lot of biotechnology company and many other parts of US came. How many got successful? But some of them made really big. Have we tried this in this country? So we just started last 3-4 years. There was no avenue how to have the startup, how to make an incubation center. It all started last 5-6 years. Now, why is it important? When I'm trying to do some discovery and having incubation center, then I actually value the industry more. So the value, now we are actually valuing the industry. And that is where an industry is also looking, okay, they are trying to do something. Let us see what is there. So industry are coming now. So we have a lot of collaboration with industry, no doubt, but I think it has to increase. Last, I just want to mention that in January, we have a meeting with OPPI, where I actually put together an idea of professor of practice. Okay, so this, that was minuted in January, that we wanted to have industry people coming to Naipar Mohali and really teach, or for a short time we go there. Okay, so I think this is increasing, no doubt. There are something in India is really required. For example, in US, someone talked about patent. In US, even you publish within 1 year, you can patent. Here, once you drop the manuscript, you can't do public any more patenting. So this kind of small changes will really help. And then what maintaining the patents becoming very difficult in academic atmosphere. So if you think of, a lot of people can say anything, but two biggest molecule, Taxol and camptothecin, was discovered by one Indian working in research triangle park. Okay, Mansukh Wani. It took 20 years later they become medicine or the drug. In India, natural products are very strong, but do we have supportive biology laboratory? Do we have pharmacology laboratory? We are fortunate that with the help of Department of Pharmaceuticals in NIPERS now, we have biology laboratory, pharmacology laboratory, where we can do also PK, all these bio availability, all kind of studies what is required. So I think in this country we are going forward. Industry collaboration is must, and academia has started really recognizing this. Now, responding to your question, is in academia is there to really help industry? The answer is yes. Now we are really looking to have a good collaboration. Not here, we means all academic people are ready to have good collaboration with industry. And we need real guidance, what to start with. Many times industry, academia is out of focus because of that leadership. Thank you.
So, Dr. Panda, I want to follow up with one more question, a point raised by Sadhna about the curriculum in the Indian institutes not being in line with what was required for research in industry or research for development of a drug, right?
So can you say, we need to take from Dr. Panda on this, because I also want to, ask him to respond to what Sadhna said.
امل بتقول تيجي تفطر ومش فاهمه عليها كثير
Of the academic,
كانه مو صراحين عند علي ما بعرف.
Can you please unmute yourself?
Dr. Panda, can you respond to that? What's your take on that? What do you think are the reasons behind?
I got the question. Yes, that in some of the curriculum is very old. Many we must try to change, updated the curriculum. So this is what we are doing. I think not only in Mohali, but other academic institutions are also doing. I had a meeting with Dr. Sridhar at some point, and I also had a meeting with OPPI. I'm trying to meet with almost all industry organization to actually modernize our syllabus. What is we want to tailor according to the need of the industry. However, it is very important for us to provide, I think, an holistic academics. That is very important, which will tailor to different, industry. So we have started this. Maybe it was not there. Now, last few months, I have really started doing that and looking forward to make more modifications towards this.
Thank you, Dr. Panda. Let me now go to Dr. Mukul Jain. Mukul, Zydus is probably one of the few Indian companies to have launched a drug in the market. Can you share your experience on how collaborations have played a role in the drug development efforts at Zydus?
Thanks. I think this answers one of the, panelists' question that, India has not developed any NC. So Zydus has developed one NC and launched in 2013 right from scratch. And last year we launched our second NC. So we have successfully launched two NCs. And this background, I think you asked about what kind of collaboration we have had and how has been our experience on collaborative research. For the first molecule, I think we had a very interesting collaboration with a Swiss university. India, as we know, that doesn't have a very strong biology, and maybe in 2000, early 2000s when we were developing this molecule, that was the situation. And we wanted some assays which were not there. No capabilities exist in India, I think, and we found this laboratory in Switzerland who actually discovered this receptor and had all the assays. So we collaborated with them, and I think it was very fruitful collaboration, which lasted us for many years, and that's really supported us to understand how this molecule behaved in different receptor configurations and subtypes. So that was a very useful collaboration that we established with the Swiss university. Unfortunately, at that time, we didn't have any laboratory in India who could have done that kind of assays. But now I think we see that many Indian universities and particularly institutes of national importance, they have excellent infrastructure, and so they can probably do those kind of assays if required. But we did not need those subsequently because we could develop our own capabilities. Now, we tried to do some collaboration. I came from academic background, so I was always keen to work with academic institutions and see that we can get a very nice industry academic collaborations. So we have two kind of experiences. One we did at individual level with the professors, where we wanted to do some collaborative research so that we could understand some aspect of science or publish some work. And that was a very fruitful collaboration we have had with many institutes and many professors or scientists in government setups. The second kind of collaboration we tried to establish was with the objective of doing some drug discovery research. And there I think our experience was not very good because nothing came out of those collaborations. And if I do some retrospective understanding analysis, what may have gone wrong, and I think my interpretation is that I think the academic organizations with whom we collaborated lacked focus. They didn't have the understanding of the drug discovery from end-to-end drug discovery. So they did something that was possible for them, but they did not pursue it the way industry pursues. So unfortunately, those did not give us any positive outcome. But no regrets about that. I think those were extremely good collaborations we've had with the institutions. Internationally, I think we've had very good collaborations with few universities. We worked with University of Michigan, where we could do some assay development, some research. We also had a collaboration that led to identification of a molecule which we are developing for treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. So I think there are both kind of experiences we have academically with the Indian institutions. Good publications came from collaborations. Internationally, we have good collaborations that led to identification of a molecule which we are pursuing. Um, with the Indian institutions, we are yet to have a successful drug discovery collaboration, but we are very optimistic that in future we may have something positive. I think the things are changing, the capabilities are changing, thinking is changing. As I think Dr. Garg mentioned that, earlier people used to do something in vitro and they say that, okay, why can't we develop this as a drug? And that was our impression that academic people did not know what is really required for a molecule to be taken as a drug. In fact, that impression also came from hearing some of the top leadership, in the government setup. For illustration, one time I was hearing on the news channel that a DG of a big government organization say that we have identified a molecule and in 3 months it will come to market. But now we know that everybody, in fact, even in government knows that what it takes to bring a molecule from an early stage of discovery to a market, and that change is really good. That we can be optimistic that we would be on the right track if leadership knows what is required for a drug to be developed. We've had some good collaboration, particularly, I think we talked a lot about COVID. So I think our COVID collaboration for discovering and developing this DNA-based vaccine that was the first in the world to be successfully commercialized. That gave us a lot of examples for positive collaboration with the government institution, particularly NIV, ICMR. And I think Christie also we did something for the assays, etc. So I think there was a lot of collaborations we established for developing the COVID vaccine, and it was really facilitated by all the departments of government in terms of accelerated approvals, in terms of facilitating the development. So very good win-win situation. I think these are some of the examples that I can mention. And lately, I think we have been working with a collaboration with the Swiss-based organization called MMB, which you have worked with them, Sridhar, also. In fact, the molecule that we are developing was originally discovered and developed by under your leadership at Astra. And I think that collaboration is very, very fruitful. And we are optimistic that this molecule will come to market one day. Thank you.
Thanks, Mukul. And yeah, it is always the public-private partnership and collaborations between the non-governmental organizations who are involved in drug discovery, whether it be TB Alliance, MMV, DNDi, I think are really setting a mark for themselves across the globe. And I'm really glad to have been part of that, and for Zydus to have taken up that molecule. So thank you on that front. I want to also ask you, you're on the boards of several institutes, and I want to see how the Indian industry is actually shaping up the curriculum in India now, right? I think there was, I would say 5 years ago, this was not the case where Indian industry would be part of academic syllabus setting. Now that you're part of some of these industries, and I think I want to go back to Sadhna's question and point, which was very pertinent as to how are we changing our curriculum to actually bring the next breed of researchers into the country, and how that collaboration spirit between industry and academia can be used to actually build that curriculum. So can just give me a few of your thoughts on that.
No, I think it's a very important question, Sridhar, that we, as a leader in drug discovery space, I think we should, if you have done something in the industry and learned something, I think drug discovery was a new thing in India. And I think with the experience of taking one molecule all the way from concept to market, I think we have learned a lot. And in fact, this learning has been facilitated by some of the collaborations we have had with with some industry and NGOs. And in fact, in past, we have worked with a few industries like Eli Lilly and a small company in Switzerland, in Sweden, where we learn a lot. So I think those, I mean, what we are today is a cumulative experience and learning from several people, from several organizations, and interaction with the drug regulators in India and outside India. So all this learning, I would definitely like to transfer to students through the academic institutes where I am involved in different roles like advisory board or board of studies member, etc. So wherever possible, I try to recommend suitable changes. We also recommend some kind of workshops or short programs which are industry oriented, and so that the students know what is expected in industry, so they are industry ready. Unfortunately, everything that Sadhna mentioned, that the practical experience is limited. I think not much can be done. I wish, as a pharmacologist, I wish that a lot of animal experiments are taught in the institutes, but unfortunately, because the animal ethics related rules set up by the government, I think those are difficult to pursue as much as we wish. But I think we would like to still find opportunities for providing training to people as much as possible. In fact, a long time back, we had driven an initiative with help of several organization, industries, and CROs, that we can propose a program to the government where the government will provide some fund, and we can incubate students in the organizations, and they can rotate in different institutes and spend some time learning what all we do in industry. But of course, this need to be supported by government so that it can be facilitated. In the industries. So some of those initiatives, I think we can still pursue. The syllabus, etc., need an overhauling, in my opinion, because many of those syllabus are really outdated, and as she mentioned, they're not really research oriented. We try to teach too many things without any focus, so we want to make generalists but not really specialists. So I think there's a need for developing more specialists who knows what they are supposed to do, and they know on the practical aspects as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Mukul. Thanks very much. I would like to now move to my next panelist, Dr. George Patani. Dr. Patani, you've been an alum from the Manipal Institutes, and you've been instrumental in making some of the collaborative networks as part of the Manipal system. Can you shed some light on what your thoughts are the building blocks for a strong industry-academia collaboration ecosystem, and how one could build that within a private institute like the Manipal Institute?
So thank you very much, Dr. Narayan. Well, at the outset, thank you very much to IPA and CII for having me on this panel. So, a lot has been shared already, and, I have an opinion on all of them, but if I go to share all of that, it's going to take very long. But, when you talk of building blocks, let me start there. So if we first talk of a very mature R&D ecosystem, so we pretty much have academic institutes, we have public-private research institutions, and then we have large pharma companies. Now, what we expect and what happens in the more mature ecosystems is that you have proof of concept developed at the academic institutes. You have the research, private research organizations that kind of upgrade this technology so they are industry ready. And then finally, you have the large pharma companies that come in and commercialize and take this to market. Now in India, we have the large pharma companies which are now mature enough to take these products and take them to market. We have research institutions, the NIPER network, the CSIR network, and they are quite capable today to upgrade technologies. They are, working towards developing technologies themselves. But what we really lack here is the academic institutions, where we don't have very high quality academic talent. Now, I don't, we have centers, good centers where good academic work is being done. Manipal being one of them, institution of eminence. We were part of a TIFAC core program in genomics there. Our experience was there were a lot of good government models to have these centers of excellence there, but they all needed a little tweaking. There were some issues on intellectual property, but I must say that the government has been very proactive and they tweaked these policies whenever it was brought to their attention. So that part was very, was fine. But then the problems come about possibly where, a partnership between industry and institution is like a marriage. There has to be number one trust. I cannot re-emphasize. There has to be trust. The two heads of the two groups need to trust each other's capabilities first. And, drug discovery always doesn't go how you want it to go. So you need to trust each other's capability. So this is the first thing I'd like to say, that in terms of ecosystem, we need to do something so that the quality of academic talent goes up. Now, there have been a number of questions saying, what is the solution? What is the solution? So if you ask me, something that I have proposed a number of times before is that, you see, we know what IPL did to Indian cricket. Indian cricket has been at the top for the last couple of years. And how they did that, they bought international talent as coaches, they bought them as players, and they made them play with our talent. We have a good talent, we have a large pool of scientists. So we need to bring in international talent to India, and we need to let them work with our researchers at the master's level, at the PhD level, and that itself is going to create a lot of change in the way we think in India. Now, without you asking me any question, I am so tempted to talk about the curriculum part of this. Now, everybody says, we have various meetings, Pharmacy Council of India, and my son is a pharmacist. I've gone through the syllabus. The syllabus may not have changed much since maybe I did my B.Pharm, but let me tell you that every expert added one topic when they had to speak. Now, can you think of the amount of load on that student? Because that student is already carrying 13 to 14 credits every semester. Now, I like to draw to what Dr. Mukul Jain said. He said that we must move towards specialization. So when we talk of curriculum, there is a certain objective we have for the curriculum at the bachelor's level, and then a certain curriculum that we expect at the master's and the PhD level. So that's where specialization comes in. And the last point I want to make is that a student who does his bachelor's in India and then goes abroad to do his master's and his PhD does phenomenally well. Now, when he completes his master's, I'm giving an example of a student in 1 year's time who writes a review paper that's published in Chem Reviews and has today over 2,000 citations. So what changed from the student who studied in India? His curriculum was the same. But what changed when he went to the US or somewhere abroad and did his master's? It was the ecosystem around him. So this is what I want to share, that we must look at specialization. Curriculum at the bachelor's level, we must know what our objective is. Curriculum at the master's and the PhD level, we must, go in for specialization. So, so just as you said, what are the building blocks? What can we do to improve the ecosystem here? These are a few points I would like to share.
Thanks so much, Dr. George Patani. I think there are members from different academic groups. There's members from the government here on this webinar. I'm sure that they are taking note of the views of all the panelists to kind of bring a change in the way we look at collaborative environments or collaborative ecosystems for creating that research to develop new therapeutics. Dr. Rajesh Jain, you had a question or a comment?
No, I loved what George said, and I think would love to work on all the suggestions that he has given. As you rightly said, there are people from the industry, academia here, government is here, so we all will work together. And I think it's not going to end here. As I said to Sadhana ji as well, that you will be changed, and George, you will be changed as well, to give more input, shoulder to shoulder work with us to take, to make India perform in terms of, innovation. And that will be a global good. It's not good only for India. But I believe if we join the whole global effort of innovation as well, so it will help everybody, especially the developing countries, and that's going to be very important, because in this one world that we saw in COVID, how accessibility became a huge issue. And I think innovation is the next challenge that all of us are facing. India has huge capability, money is on the table, infrastructure there. Some things, I'm not saying it's a trick, I agree with you, it's a trust. And things may not go as you planned. It's 90% failure. Success will come when it comes. So you really need to align with each other. But I think we guys can do that. But it's not going to be a trick. We know that it's going to be a long trip, not a trick. But I think we want to do that, and you guys will be chased after this call to give more inputs, and we are not going to let you go off. Thank you for those useful comments. Thank you so much.
Dr. George Patani, I have one follow-on question, right? And I would, a lot has been said about development of small molecule therapeutics and, new technologies and stuff like that. You lead an organization, Inga Laboratories, which focuses on phytochemicals. And can you talk about, maybe a few things about how easy or difficult it is to collaborate and develop therapeutics from the natural products in India?
So, you've given me more fuel to set. Here what I want to share is that we make things more difficult for ourselves. 2015, we passed a law called the Phytopharmaceutical Drugs Act, a law, so that the purpose of this act was that phytopharmaceuticals based on the history of use in India will come into mainstream pharma. This was our goal. And that was the goal of all those who made this segment called phytopharmaceuticals. Now, if you launch a drug in India, you have a choice to launch it as a drug. You have the choice maybe to launch it as a food supplement, or you have the option to go the Ayurvedic way. And this was the phytopharmaceutical route was something that was proposed so that drugs which had history of use in India could come into mainstream pharma as a drug. But what we did there, we said that instead of one active in that drug, we have to characterize 4 actives in a drug. Now, if you look at a monograph in the BP or the USP, most of the people in the USP, the Herbal Products Committee, are from India. The chair is from India. And we are giving all these drugs to the United States Pharmacopoeia, these standards to them, and they all have one bioactive. So why is that when we decided to have a Phytopharmaceutical Act, we decided that there must be 4 bioactives that must be characterized? Now, if you see from a industry point of view, it's not that I don't have the capability to have 4 bioactives, but the bioactive that I get from the one region of India and that I source from the other region of India may not have all 4 bioactives. So this is a very simple thing. And the most important point I would like to make is that the drug is being developed for a specific activity. So why do we characterize 4 bioactives when 3 of them may not be responsible for the activity? So this is how we make life difficult for ourselves. This is what I'm trying to say, that our goal is to bring natural products in India to mainstream pharma and make, large Indian pharma, large multinational pharma look at these natural products and the actives in them. Now, instead, what happens is that if I as a company want to take the easiest route, I use it as a food supplement, or I call it an Ayurvedic drug. And there we miss the purpose why we made the act. So this is some point I'd like to share about, why we are sometimes missing the boat, because we're making things more difficult for ourselves. There's a lot of more aspects, Biodiversity Act, etc. But just to share with you, this is one example of how we make things more difficult for ourselves. So, and finally, I think we must always look at whatever interaction we do with Industry Institute. One point I left to share out is we have to change the metrics of measurement. Metrics of measurement for an institute is possibly the number of publications. But do we ask the institute how many research collaborations they have? How many industry scientists did they invite to their institute just for lunch, nothing else? So that when industry looks out for technology, they know where to find it. So, like I said, some basic things we need to change. The metrics in which we measure, the regulations we impose on ourselves, and lot will change. And I think just to close out, I must just repeat something that, that was said by Dr. Jain, Dr. Pramod Jain, I think before. He said, what we do at the time of disaster, I'm tweaking what he said. He said, so I'm saying what we do at the time of disaster is what we should do in peace. The rush and the urgency that we had at the time of COVID, I think that should be the rush and the urgency even now for our research. But now we've all settled back to, lazier schedules. So, this is something that we say, but we need to implement this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patani, and I'm sure that there are many lunch invitations that are going to come your way now. So with that, I'll open up the floor for questions to the audience. If any of you have questions, please put them in the chat box or in the Q&A box that you have. I have one question, Dr. Patani, for you to start with. What is the status of the Bayh-Dole Act in India, and do you see an act of this nature having the similar impact on forming innovation clusters in India as it did in the US?
So this is another very good question. We keep trying to ape the West. I can repeatedly see at every industry institute interaction this question about the Bayh-Dole Act. Now, you see, the Bayh-Dole Act primarily was most of the research in the US is funded by the NIH. And basically, this act allowed the universities to sell the intellectual property that they developed from this research. Now, India had its own version of the Bayh-Dole Act, which was passed somewhere more than 10 years ago. It was tabled in the parliament, and then for various reasons, it was not passed. But why do we need the Bayh-Dole Act is something I do not understand, because there is nothing stopping our research institutions from selling their intellectual property to the industry. Our government is funding so many schemes, but they are free. They have said that you can, patent whatever invention that you have. So actually, we don't need the Bayh-Dole Act in India. The Bayh-Dole Act was a version. It's called the Indian Bayh-Dole Act. You can go on the internet, just put Indian Bayh-Dole Act, and you can see its history here in India. But I think we really don't need the Bayh-Dole Act in India because there's no regulation that stops us from our Indian institutions from patenting the intellectual property that they have developed.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I seem to have run out of time. It's been such a fascinating panel discussion, and with views from across the globe. I must thank my panelists, Robin Evers, Sadhna Joglekar, Dr. Dulal Panda, Mukul Jain, and George Patani for the wonderful interactions, and last but not the least, Dr. Rajesh Jain for all his comments during the panel discussion as well. So thank you all very much. If it's possible, can I have all the panelists turn on their cameras to take a photograph? Dr. Swati, can I also request Dr. Rajneesh Tingle and Dr. Pramod Garg to kindly switch on their cameras?
So, Sridharji, Dr. Tingle has logged off, but Dr. Yuvraj is just joining. He's come back from the ministry.
Wonderful.
And he's requested, he says that, Swati, I am joining. I'm very excited for this webinar. So please ask them to stay. Hold on.
Sure.
Good.
Yeah. So just one second.
That's the Indian commitment for innovation.
Absolutely.
All but there. But there.
I'm not sure if Dr. Robin is still online, and and
I'm still online.
Yeah. Wonderful.
I'm just checking for Dr. Yuvraj. Give me a second.
Sure.
Devang, can we please take a screenshot so we know for the entire panel? Thank you.
As long as I look good, Devang, everything is okay.
Thank you so much.
No,
Sadhna,
don't thank Sridhar. Don't thank. Have the conversation on.
Okay.
No,
Dr. Yuvraj is going to join in. Okay, so then I have time for one or two more questions to the panel.
Yes,
then.
please.
Yeah, you can keep them busy. Yeah, sure.
No, I have a list of questions here, so definitely would like to follow up on that. So this question is to Sadhna. So this was asked in one of the chat boxes. So what is your experience with the changing environment with in silico approaches being used for regulatory clearances? And what is your view on how collaborations could potentially build on these in silico approaches?
So Sridhar, I must first of all admit I'm not an expert in silico experimentation. See, I think the person who's asking this question is referring to the biome example that I gave. So we must understand Biome India is something which only pilots projects and takes it to the POC level. Thereafter, it's taken up by the global organization. So when you're doing a pilot, you are not intending to use it for regulatory submissions, and therefore the question of regulatory hurdles or otherwise within India never arose when we were doing this let's say proof of concept modeling for ourselves. Globally, I know, and as I said, I'm not an expert, but I know for a fact that there is a lot of impetus towards moving to in silico modeling, because I personally believe that's the way to go. We want to safeguard patients, and therefore we moved to animals. And we said that, let's ensure that the drug is safe and to some extent effective, but it's more about safety in animals before you choose the dose and then give it to the patients. Then you move one step back and you say, okay, but let me do as much robust in vitro analysis and in vitro experimentation as I can. And then you move to in silico. So it's actually while you're moving you're moving upstream in a way. If say you're going to get the highest value if you start replacing animal experimentation with in silico modeling. So why wouldn't the regulators support it? And therefore, I know whether it's EMA, it's US FDA, there've been immense number of discussions on how do we validate in silico experimentation so that we have clearly laid out guidelines for what should be done and what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. But if I were to go back to the answer, if it's referring to the example that I shared for biome, it was just a pilot, and therefore there was no requirement to seek any local Indian regulatory approvals.
Thanks very much, Sadhana. Swati, I see Dr. Yuvraj has joined. So I must, I'll conclude the panel session. I definitely want to acknowledge the contributions from the panelists. It's been a wonderful discussion. We had only one academic institute from India, NIPER, on the panel, but I must also congratulate Dr. Dulal Panda for, building or at least starting to build that ecosystem today, which will enable future researchers from India and maybe many drugs from India coming in, which would be useful across the globe. I also want to thank CII for the opportunity that you gave me and my colleagues at IPA and colleagues at CII who put together this wonderful panel. Thank you so much, Swati. Hand over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for a very interesting discussion. Yeah, very interesting discussion. I request Dr. Jain to please invite Dr. Yuvraj for this concluding remarks.
Thank you, Swati, for this opportunity. So I have the pleasure of inviting Dr. N. Yuvraj, who is our Joint Secretary for Department of Pharmaceuticals, Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizer, to give us the closing remarks. Sir, over to you.
Okay, so thanks a lot for all the panelists and also the participants of this particular webinar. First of all, let me give you a big hand and congratulations to B20 under CII, so which has organized this particular webinar in a very short time. Don't believe it was a very short time available to the entire team. And also I also congratulate IPA with respect to bringing the good speakers for this particular important topic. I hope so that the entire deliberations, as per the concept note circulated by the people, the need for collaboration on the therapeutic side, especially on the R&D and innovation side, which is a gap which is quite visible, has been highlighted in the particular webinar. And there will be some good actionable points also would have been arrived after this particular webinar. I want to see the deliberations in a form of a report or recommendation so that will be a useful case to take over to the higher platforms such as G20 also, where in health working groups we try to incorporate these particular happenings, and also to the wherever possible so that the policy interventions can be taken up. So I thank all the panelists who have been here. I start from Rajneesh Singhal sir. He's not there today. He is attending some other meeting because of this one. And also, when I said Rajesh Jain ji, Dr. Rajesh Jain ji, who has welcomed me also, thanks a lot. And also our ED, THS, TI, Dr. Pramod Garg, who has given the presentation also. And also, yes, we have so many good panelists, like Mr. Robin Evers, Dr. Dulal Panda from Naipur Mohali, and I'm seeing Dr. Jaj Patani also. So we also see Dr. Sadhana Joglekar, and also Dr. Mukul Jain from Zydus also. And also we see that we also give good hands to the moderator also of this session, Mr. Sridhar Narayan also, who has done fantastically well. Because I was getting the inputs through WhatsApp, how is the session is going on. So all this gives a confidence. So again, I thank all the participants, panelists, all for this webinar who have given their full thoughts. We hope that we want to distill this deliberation into a decoction of recommendations or the policy interventions which will be able to take forward further. And thanks a lot, Mr. Siranjit Segalji also, who is a senior, also joined here, and also is there a part of the deliberations. Thanks a lot. And again, over to you to Swatiji, and thanks a lot again. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining for this deliberation. So we had more than about 100 plus 120 participants. And there's a lot of discussions even on the chat box on the right hand side. I wish if you were able to join it earlier. However, say I would be happy to share the recording with the Department of Pharma, and IP and CII will also share that what has been discussed in this webinar. So before we sign off, thank you so much, and special thanks to Mr. Sudarshan Jain as well for arranging this from IPA. Mr. Jain, thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All the best. Enjoy your day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jain. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
A lovely webinar.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye bye.